So, welcome to our next episode um, of Gari-On, short for Garifuna Onward, Garifuna for today and tomorrow. Today, we are happy to welcome our guest today. I know her as StephAnn. She goes by Feroza Cayetano. I know her because of a friend in Jamaica. You know, when I studied there, I met her. She's the daughter of that friend. So I'm happy to have, met her then and to see how she has grown and developed into this young woman that we have here today. And I know her as a musician, a singer, a songwriter, a music producer, a podcaster, that she had
All of the things.
her sister about Garifuna spirituality. And of late, she told me she is also a teacher where she teaches people English as a first language.
As a
Is that
second
what I'm
language,
saying?
yeah.
As a second language, yes. So thank you, Feroza Cayetano, for being here, and I will pass it over to you to talk a bit about your background and how your journey in getting here today.
Oh man, that is such a big question, Dorette. It's very big. I was reflecting on the first time I met you, or maybe the first time that you came into my consciousness, because when we were living in Jamaica, my family hosted so many Belizean students and so many Garifuna students in particular,
Hmm.
because we were not far from UWI, University of the West Indies. I think you went to UTech, right?
Yes, I
I
did.
don't know if you want this out there, but let me just share. I remember my mom was like, there's a Garifuna girl, and she's thinking of quitting, and we can't have that. And I don't know, I must have been like 13, 14. I was like, whatever, like I don't care. Like, why do I have to be in the car? And I wasn't there for the conversation that she had with you, but I just remember, oh yeah, like this girl, she's Garifuna, she wants to quit. She shouldn't quit. Education is important. Ting, ting, ting. And I'm glad if she convinced you or you were convinced, you changed your mind. I'm glad you stayed.
Thank
Um,
you. Appreciate
that
it.
was a lot of my upbringing. My teenage years in Jamaica was where I really had to learn to explain and understand my Garifuna identity.
Hmm.
So I grew up in Belize City until I was 10. And then we moved to Jamaica and we ended up living there for 9 years. It was supposed
Wow.
to be 3, but I don't know, adult situation, contracts change. We ended up there for 9 years, which in my father's field of work is kind of unheard of. Essentially, I was in Jamaica for all of high school and sixth form, between 10 and 19. And moving to Jamaica, where the Black people there are just Black people, they're the descendants of slaves. And this was maybe standard 5, standard 6, right? The very end of elementary school. I'm in this geography social studies class and they're talking about the Tainos, right? The indigenous people of Jamaica and how they're dead. And oh, the Caribs, yeah, they were cannibals. And I was like, because I'm a child. I wasn't raised to like disrespect the teacher and to be contrary to the teacher. But I remember being like, but miss, I am Garifuna and I am part Carib and I'm
Hmm.
alive. So so the Caribs can't be dead.
Hmm.
And I remember my teacher being like, what? And I don't remember how that ended. Like the class continued.
Hmm.
But I told my mother, and ever since then, she made a point to, like, there were times she would bring cassava because we always had cassava in our house, even in Jamaica. We had people coming from Belize and we would ask for cassava bread. So my mom would make a point of baking, like just toasting the cassava bread to bits, to like chips, cassava chips, and like making me take it to school and share it with my friends and share it with my class and explain what is this cassava bread and beans. And I was like, because no child wants to be different.
Hmm.
But but my parents were very much like, no, like you're supposed to be proud. Like this is
Mhm.
cassava bread. This is what our people made, and this is what helped us survive. And so I had many moments of like, I don't want to talk about it though. I'm like, we're weird. We're from Belize. We're black, but we're not the same kind of black. And they're talking about slavery, but you told me that we weren't enslaved, and they said that that's not true. And it was
Mhm.
a lot of confusion.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was really how I learned. Because in Belize, growing up in Belize, you learn a little bit about Garifuna, and like you have Spanish people in the north, Garifuna in the south, you know,
Mhm.
Quechua. We learn about our demographics in school. But when I was growing up, Garifuna wasn't something for me to think about. It was just like, yeah, Cayetano, oh, you related to so and so, and
Mhm.
it was never something that I had to explain. But moving to Jamaica, especially when I learned Caribbean history for CXC, it
Mhm.
really puts into context the power of the Garifuna story. And learning about the Haitian Revolution in at the end of high school for CXC, learning about the Haitian Revolution and the Garifuna role in the Haitian Revolution was really cool. And then understanding the just the dynamics of the British are trying to take over the Caribbean, and the fact that St. Vincent was the last island to fall to colonization. Like if you
Hmm.
look at the history and if you look at the dates, St. Vincent had the shortest era of slavery. And that's because we fought,
Yes, we did.
right? Like we put up a fight.
Yes, our ancestors
We
did. Yeah.
lost the fight, but understanding just like where we fit in that larger context really helped me be proud.
Mhm.
And then by sixth form I was like, well, I wasn't a slave, you know, I am Garifuna, you know. And then of course I had to learn humility
Mm, mhm.
because we're
Mm.
all in the struggle against the
Yes.
Europeans and all kind of things.
Mhm.
Um but yeah, I grew up in Lisurunia. That's what we call like outside of Garifuna community.
Mhm.
And it I really gravitated to my Garifuna identity in my teenage years and in my 20s because my family and I moved enough times that I couldn't really claim a country. We
Mhm.
were in Jamaica, but we weren't Jamaican. And then my family moved to Trinidad, we're not Trini. And then
Mhm.
I was in the United States for my first degree. I'm not really American. I have a passport, but my American identity goes as far as just I was born there and I have the passport. I did not grow up there. I am not African American because that's a
Mhm.
whole
Mhm.
other context of being
Mhm.
Black.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, given the fact that I can't really claim a country, being Garifuna and the Garifuna history of we are fishermen, we are farmers, we travel a lot. My grandparents were the generation of those teachers. Shout out to Jerry Enriquez, who wrote that book, you know, illuminating how Garifuna people taught the nation. I think it's called Teaching a Nation.
Mhm.
My grandparents are a part of that cohort of Garifuna families that left the Garifuna communities to teach the nation.
Mhm.
And so talking to my aunts and uncles, they often mention, yeah, like we would come back to Barranco, which is our village, for Christmas and summer, but then we would live out in the Maya villages. And
Mhm.
so, yes, it's within Belize, but it was still the way they tell the story. Leaving Barranco and PG and Dangriga and going into the Maya villages was like going to a completely different country.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, talking to my elders about that loneliness and separation helped me feel more connected because I was leaving Belize and living in these other places, feeling separated and isolated.
Mhm.
And so in my teenage years and my 20s, it was very much like, I am Garifuna. Yes, hear me roar. And I'm
Mhm.
grateful. At this point, I'm in my early 30s. It's not something I think about as deeply. It's just one of the many colors on my canvas, if that makes sense. One of the many colors in my
Yeah.
tile mosaic.
Mhm.
But it's still a very important piece. I don't speak the language. I'll just say it's not something I'm proud of. I could say, you know, I'm hungry. Good morning. Where is the food? I can pray. I can sing the Our Father. I can sing the
Mhm.
Our Father. Um, but nobody can tell me that I'm not Garifuna, because I have visited Belize. I've met some elders on the street who recognize my last name, and then once they realize I can't speak Garifuna, they're like, "Oh, Mama, you're not Garifuna." I've had people tell me that, and you know what? I'm here to
Wow.
say I am Garifuna. No
Mhm.
one can tell me. No one can measure my Garifuna-ness.
Mhm.
Yes, there are those of us who can speak fluent. Yes, there are those of us who can play drums and sing all the songs. Yeah. But the rest of us, we are just as Garifuna. It is in my blood. It is in my resilience. It is in my devotion to my family. And it is in my spirituality,
Mhm.
which leads into my sister and I did a podcast. Yes, it's called Garifuna Sisters Talk Spirituality, because I was curious. I wanted to know more, and I'm a millennial, and I thought, well, I want to know more, and I want other people to hear these conversations,
Mhm.
because it's not just for me. This is for the rest of us Garifuna young people in Lusuriania who are having these crazy spiritual experiences with no one to talk to. And we have the internet. We have the internet. Like what you're doing, Derek. Like, let's use it.
Yes, it's a
And
tool. Use it.
yes, it's a double-edged sword, but let's use the sword in the good way.
Yes.
So for a year and a half, my sister and I ran this podcast, interviewing different elders, interviewing people who were willing to be interviewed, because boy, that was quite a journey, finding people who were willing to share with us publicly.
Mhm.
And we kind of got interrupted because I had a medical situation that took over my life. And the podcast is still on my mind, because there's still things we didn't get to really talk about, like aspects of the Dugu and just the other ceremonies. But the archive is there, and it's an archive that I'm very proud of.
Mhm.
Um, and and so the spirituality is in the podcast with that. And also, yes, you mentioned that I make music. Um, in my early 20s, I had my spiritual experiences, and to cut a long-ish story short, I am now familiar and I have a good relationship with the spirit who walks with me, one of the spirits who walks with me. She gives me songs, and it was quite a journey to get to know her and to set boundaries of, hey, I am happy to get these songs, but please don't wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning when I have an exam at eight
Mhm.
o'clock.
Mhm.
Like, I'm willing, but like, hey, come at the right time. And I spoke to different elders who told me that that was okay. There is one woman, Sharon Ellington, I can say her name because we spoke to her on my podcast, and
Mhm.
she said, yeah, you can tell them, but speak to them nicely.
Mhm.
Sina Bay, he just died, may he rest in peace.
Mhm.
Esteban Palacio, the former Sina Bay, he told me in a session, you have to speak to the spirits nicely. Because at that point, I was like, why are they not making me sleep? I can't sleep. I'm tired of this. It's just noise. And he was like, I can see that you're angry. Because I didn't tell him anything. I just walked into his house, and he was like, I can see that you're angry. You have to
Mhm.
talk to them nicely. And I was like,
Mhm.
he's like, no, just he was a very cool, collected, calm man, and
Mhm.
I was just frustrated. So over the years, she now realizes, oh yeah, she will. We now have a relationship. She knows that when
Mhm.
I say later, I do mean later. And
Mhm.
when later comes, I can sit down and say, all right, I'm ready. And then the song
Mhm.
comes.
Mhm.
They're not Garifuna songs in the sense of they're not about Garifuna consciousness per se. They're not
Mhm.
in the language, but they're Garifuna songs in the sense that they're from me, and I'm a Garifuna woman.
Mhm.
And it is about spirit, and spirit doesn't have a nationality or an ethnicity. Spirit
Mhm.
is spirit, and that is where I understand my journey at this point.
Mhm.
Talk to me in 10 years and I might tell you something completely different. But at this point, I found a level of contentment and peace in my Garifuna-ness, and using that as a foundation of being a human in this world, trying to take care of this planet and do good in the world. Yeah.
Mhm.
I said so much. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you for that. No
A lot.
apologies for who you are
Okay.
and, your journey. I mean, that's the point of all this.
I didn't realize I had so much to say, especially for the old people who are like, you don't know Garifuna because you don't talk Garifuna. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
right.
So
You
tell
understand
us, yeah, of course, of course. So tell us about your musical journey, how you started off musically.
music. Shout out to Palota Music School in Belize City, because that's where I began. I
Hmm.
think it's a big music school now, but back in the day, um, it was like 5 students.
Oh, wow.
And I think my first violin, there were some Americans who donated violins to Pelosi, I believe, because I
Hmm.
didn't own my first few violins. Um, when we moved to Jamaica and I was playing violin, everyone thought, "Oh, so you're rich because you can like afford violin lessons." And I didn't have the language, and as a child, I didn't know that we weren't paying for violin lessons. There was
Hmm.
a special at the time. I don't know what it's like now, but at the time
Hmm.
it was like the Americans coming and helping.
Hmm.
So like volunteer work, and if we paid anything, it wasn't to the level of what people do pay for
Hmm.
violin lessons, which are famously expensive. When I was 15, I asked my parents for a guitar, and and I remember talking to Andy P, who I used to call Yao. He's my uncle. Well, he's everybody's uncle, I guess, because we're all related. But my father and him were like they were raised as like brothers, so he was my uncle. And I remember
Hmm.
saying, "Hey, yo, I'm getting a guitar. Like, I want to be like you." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah." And man, by the time I got the guitar when I was 16, and I could have sent him an email, and I was like, "No, I'm gonna wait until we're in Belize because he's on tour." And of course, he died a few months later. And I was never able to tell him in person, "I got the guitar." Yeah.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I got this guitar and I used it to sing the sad songs that were famous at the time because I was a sad teenager with just a lot of emotions. I don't think I
Hmm.
wasn't really sad, but I was just a teenager with a lot of emotions, feeling isolated in a foreign country.
Hmm.
Um, and in my early 20s, when I was in university, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Brazil. And I took the guitar with me to Brazil. And this is important because it was while I was in Brazil and even on the way to Brazil on the plane that I had my spiritual, I don't want to call this an experience, the beginning of my spiritual awakening.
Hmm.
And the way I think of it now is it was a combination of, again, being isolated in a foreign country where you're still learning their language, Portuguese.
Hmm.
Um, and I suppose that making me more open to hearing things. That was when I started to hear things and hear songs and like see shadows in the corner. And I was happy to get the songs at the time because that was when I started writing songs. It was in 2014 in Sao Paulo, Brazil. But then it got freaky when I would be on a bus and I would hear a voice say, "Get off the bus, there's someone you should meet." And so I'd be like, "All right, well, I'll get off the bus and walk 10 steps and I meet an old man and end up having like a 5-hour conversation with this old man about like the meaning of life."
Oh, wow.
Things like that. It was so in the beginning, it was a little freaky, but I was willing to go along with it. That Christmas, when I went home to Barranco, it got overwhelming. And just before leaving Brazil, I called my sister. Shout out to my sister because she was so young and didn't know anything about anything. But I was like, "Skylar, I think I'm a witch. I
Oh.
can touch people and I can hear songs and I don't know." I
Hmm.
was I was crying on the phone and she was like, "You're not a witch, you're not evil, you're fine. Like it's just I don't know what it is, but you're not hurt, right? And I was like, no, I'm not hurt. And she's like, you're not like nothing bad is happening, right? And I was like,
Mhm.
no. So she was like, well, it sounds fine. But my thing was, this is not normal. This isn't
Mhm.
normal. So that Christmas, I broke down and I told my mother, because it was Christmas, lots of people in the house, very
Mhm.
overwhelming, spiritually overstimulating. And so I broke down and I told my mother, Ma, I think I see dead people.
Oh
And
gosh.
I can tell the story and laugh.
Mhm.
But because it sounds like the movie, I see dead people, you know, like that movie. But truly, that evening in Morocco with some kind of party happening outside, I was like, Ma, something is wrong. I think I see dead people, and this is not okay, and I don't feel okay, and I don't know what to do. Because I would
Mhm.
not have said anything, but it got that bad that I was like,
Mhm.
no, I know this is crazy, but this is what's happening. And she
Mhm.
said, well, shout out to my mother, goodness gracious. She was like, well, what are you hearing? What are they
Mhm.
telling you? And I said, I don't know. It sounds like noise, but sometimes it's songs. And I don't know. I was panicking.
Mhm.
And she was on her own journey at the time. And she had a contact with a bouye in Laboga. And she was like, all right, I'm gonna call the bouye. I'm gonna send you to Laboga and we'll see. Um, since then, it's been many, many, many conversations with different elders. And what I now understand is, yes, I have this woman. Her name was given to me some time ago, but whenever I say it out loud to people, the internet like goes wrong and weird things happen when I say her name out loud to people. So I just call her the woman who walks with me.
Mhm.
She's revealed different things about herself over time.
Mhm.
And she comes to me sort of like a knock on the door of my mind because I kind of feel like a tingle sometimes here, sometimes here. And it's like, hey, I have a message for you. I have a message. Sometimes it's I have a message for you, or it's I have a message through you for the world.
Okay.
Different songs have come in that way. And I learned to just sit, whip out my guitar, and let it come through.
Mhm.
Other times, if I'm in class or if I'm driving or something, through the conversation that I mentioned earlier, I've learned to say, not right now. I will get to you, but as you can see, I am driving or I am
Mhm.
XYZ, I am occupied.
Mhm.
Wheel and come again at 7 p.m. when I'm home. And and at this point, because now I'm truly comfortable, but up until 2020 it was a lot of like back and forth and negotiation. And I've discovered that a relationship with your spirit, with I guess your principal spirit, because many people have like many guardian angels but a relationship with your spirit is just like a relationship with a person. You get to know them over time and in different situations
Mhm.
and how they act in different situations and different contexts. So now we have it good where I can say, hey, what's up? And sometimes she just leaves me alone and I'm living my own life. I can tell the songs, or I know the songs that are from me because they're not as good. And the songs from her, which I can tell from the audience response, it makes them sit down, it makes them cry, it makes them go within into their own soul.
Mhm.
And it's a balance. Even as I produce music and produce other people's music, there's there's a really it just works. We found a way to tag team.
Mhm.
We found a
It's
way
like
to tag team. But there are elders who have told me, like, don't forget that you're a person and that these dead people, these spirits, they had their time, right? So
mhm.
like you live your life and you do what you want to do. And I am doing that. But
Mhm.
I'm learning the balance of this is what I want, but also the spirit that is with me is guiding me to like a certain path as well. How much of it is me, and how much of it is her and us? I don't know. I'll tell you in about 20 years. But for now it feels aligned, and I'm also learning how my body feels in terms of what I'm doing and knowing that that's the right path. So my music work is spirit work.
Mm.
It's spiritual alchemy. It's emotional alchemy. It's spiritual alchemy. That was a
Hey,
long-winded answer.
thanks,
Should I
thanks,
apologize?
thanks for sharing that.
I
Wow,
can't talk about my music without also talking about the spiritual aspect
yeah,
because
it's a part of it.
yeah, they're completely intertwined.
Mhm,
And I talked to a Abuye. The last time I spoke to a Abuye because I was in a panic was because I felt not guilty. I felt insecure that the fact that the songs I was receiving, because I've heard of this word ichigahot, where like you receive songs. We do have a culture. There is an understanding in our culture that you can get a song in a dream.
mhm,
You receive a song or like a story from a dream or from something and you have to catch it. My uncle Roy talks about how in the old days before there were recorders, someone would get a song from a dream, wake up their partner and hurry and teach the song
mhm.
before they lost the song because
Right,
there was no
right.
recorder. Now we have iPhone and Samsung and no
All
excuse
type
not
of
to record the
technology,
song.
yes.
Yeah. But I spoke to this buye because I was like, well, I know I'm Garifuna, I know this is spiritual, but it's not in Garifuna though. Is that wrong? Is that bad? And he was like, it's coming from spirit though. It can't be wrong. It can't be bad.
Mhm.
If anything, the spirit is coming to you in a way that you will understand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that was a new, and that's still a new concept to me because again, they're the people who are like, you're not Garifuna if you're not speaking Garifuna and all these things. And one day maybe I'll write a song in Garifuna, but it's not on my path at this point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of you, you already said you are not fluent in Garifuna. Do you understand when
Can people talk about me?
your mom or someone else is speaking Garifuna?
No. No. If it's not about food, I can understand the conversation about food. Is it
Mhm,
cooking? Is it in the oven? It's just about ready. Those kinds of things I can understand.
mhm.
But yeah, people can talk about me.
Uh-oh.
People can talk about me in Garfana. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You know,
And
your conversation with Mahabub mentioned that he really, really got fluent when he used to go to Livingston, when he used to go to Guatemala. And
mhm.
indeed, before I went to law school, I had a whole summer where I really wanted to go live with a cousin in Guatemala and
Oh.
like work at his bar or something and just be because I know that when you're surrounded when I spent a month with my granny, the last time I was in Belize in November, I spent a month with my grandmother. And in her old age, she doesn't want to speak English anymore. She can speak English, but she refuses to speak English anymore. After that month I spent with her this past November, I was understanding so much more Garifuna in my life. So
Mhm,
in my mid-20s, I really wanted to go to Guatemala and spend like a summer. It ended up not working out, but ideally, I wish we could make some kind of program sending Garifuna people, like young people from Belize, over to Honduras or Guatemala for a summer to live like a Garifuna living
mhm,
exchange.
mhm, mhm.
Because
That's a
when you're
good
surrounded with
idea.
it,
Yeah.
survive or die,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
will
I think
learn.
that's the like only way I would learn a
Yes,
language, right?
yes. It's
To the
sink or
point of being
swim.
fluent.
Sink or swim. Walk around with the Garifuna dictionary and try to, you know.
Navigate.
Yeah, yeah. But I wasn't. Yeah, it didn't work. So yeah, my Garifuna is very limited to food and prayer.
Mhm. Okay, so I want to
Habiri, Buiti Benafi,
trust me, you know more than some people. So
Ladina.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to switch gears now,
Mm.
if you'd allow me. So I will play this little game that I came up with. Similar to the one that you saw in my first episode.
Oh
But
Lord.
in this case, I'm going to show you images and uh the English word and the Garifuna word, but the Garifuna word are gonna be jumbled up. So you tell me which word you think matches the picture.
Okay.
So let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So these are the photos. This is the first example of the Garifuna dictionary, which in English I just call it book. That's the Garifuna word, garada, and the word match will be in this column that just says word match. So following so far?
Yes.
Okay. So the next one is guitar. These are the words in column C, but jumbled up.
Oh, okay. Guitar
So
is Gidara at the bottom.
okay, so that's that one, and I will just put it beside it.
Mahabub taught me that.
Yeah, see, you're learning already. So that one is down. Okay, and then
Mm.
river.
I know Duna is water, so it must be Duna A Baguati. Sweet
You're good
River?
at this.
I don't know.
You are good at this.
Yeah,
Process elimination, right?
yeah.
The one is drum.
Drum is Garawon. Garawon? No, that's drummer? Wait. Garawon. Oh, yeah. Garawon.
Hmm.
Dumbria is drummer.
The next one is the flag, Garifuna flag.
Fuburi? Abiria? No. Fanidira. It must be Fanidira. Is it?
You get that correct again. Good job. Okay,
Oh,
next
that's
one.
me.
That's you. Is rock.
Um, I should know this. Can you spell the I guess dubu? Hmm?
You got it correct again.
Okay, that was just process of elimination because flowers.
And finally, flowers.
What's which one have we not called? I genuinely don't know that one.
So you did Gidara,
Yeah, Guidaro's guitar.
Ibagwati, Dubu, Vanedara,
Girl,
Garahu,
it must be the very first
yeah,
one.
and
Was it?
Garada. Remember this one is
Garada
done
is
with
book. Oh
Dhamma
yeah. So
Center.
what is
The other one that you haven't used is this one.
Fuluri? Ah, okay. Yeah. Okay. 8 out of 10. That's still a passing grade.
Oh, for sure. You did a good job. Congrats. And
Hi.
hopefully you learned some new words.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
That's a
it.
cool game.
Thank you. So let me switch again
Mm.
to this one. So these are the pictures I showed you earlier. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Paul Nabor, the great.
Right. Do you remember the word for that?
Gidara.
Yeah, that are very good.
Gidara.
And river,
Duna, something.
Eba, Ebagwati.
Ebagwati. Duna Ebagwati.
Yeah.
Eh,
Do you recognize the area
This is
in the
in
photo?
Nagriga, no?
By Barmouth. Yeah.
Yeah. This is where they do the Yurume.
Yes, that's the point
Yeah.
on the left where the boats come in.
Yeah. Which, by the way, is electric.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
electric. Garawan.
Garo. Good job.
Oh, food, foodari?
Funedera.
Food,
Funedera. Fun. Let
something
me
with an
see.
F. Funedera?
Fanidera.
Fanidara.
Fanidira.
Fanidara.
Fanidera.
I don't remember rock.
Dubu.
Dubu. But that's me. That's my second album.
That's you.
I'm on a Dubu.
Yeah.
Fulari.
Fuluri.
Fuluri.
Yes.
Fuluri.
Hmm. Good job, StephAnn. Good job, Feroza.
Serenade, serenade. I'm fine with you calling me StephAnn. You know, it's not a secret what my proper name is, my given passport name. I adopted Feroza when I wanted to step into my musicianship.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
I am both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, next. So I'm sure you've seen this before, the Garifuna dictionary.
Mhm.
Um, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so what what does the Garifuna dictionary mean to you?
I am always, when I see the dictionary, I am always amazed at the people and the work that went behind compiling this list of words,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lot. And I always wish I had a pocket-sized one. I know there's an online one that gives the Garifuna and the Spanish, I think. And there's a Garifuna word of the day and thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
What's the name of that one?
the name of the book?
That one you said there's an online version.
Oh, I don't remember. I'd have to find it for you, or maybe just Google it.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a Garifuna online dictionary. Um, it also reminds me that I don't want to use the word lacking, the opposite word, that it reminds me that there is room for me to grow and learn these
Mm-hmm.
words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what is your advice to people, especially young people, where, they come at a point in their lives where, they realize, okay, I want to learn Garifuna, I want to um, speak the language, and be more connected in that way to my culture, to my, Garifuna identity. What would be your advice to them?
My first advice would be to purchase the physical copy of Watina by Andy P.
Mhm.
Actually, all of the Garifuna Collective hard copies, because they have the booklet with the lyrics.
That's true.
Um, and that is helpful for me. What I was so surprised by, if you have Spotify, if you're living in the States, is now a lot of songs have the lyrics.
Mm.
And Baba Anihe Baba Wama, like if you put on that song, it has the
Mhm.
lyrics with
Yes,
the
it does.
thing. And I was like,
Oh,
wow,
in
cool,
Spotify?
cool, cool.
Nice. I don't
Yeah,
have
yeah, on
Spotify, but
Spotify. Or at
that's
least
good
it
to
or at
know.
least it did 5 years ago, when I was looking. But it I don't think it's enough to just listen and try to mimic the words. It helps to read the words and sound it out like we did in
Mhm,
school when we learned songs.
mhm,
And what I like about the Garifuna Collective booklets for their albums is that it has the English translation as well. So
yeah,
you know what the story, and it has a little blurb, like 2, 3 lines of the story behind the song, which
mm,
context is very important when learning a song, especially Garifuna songs.
mm,
The second would be, there are so many people like you and I doing online things on YouTube, who are making language books and putting it on Amazon. Um, I forget who, but somebody released like a beginner's, I think it's like a 3 book set, and it's on Amazon. I think it's a Honduran woman.
mm,
but you can actually Google or type into Amazon. Not that Jeff Bezos needs any more money, but it's such a convenient resource.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Type
it is.
into Amazon Garifuna Language, and there's quite a number of books that have beginners level learning Garifuna. And if you can afford it, come to the home country. If you're from Belize, go to Hopkins. If you're from Guatemala, go to La Vega. If you're from Honduras, there's so many more options in Honduras, but Honduras is kind of going through something, so be careful.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the third, because it's one thing to read and study, but it's another thing to speak with natives, which is what I do for a living. I practice English conversation with people who have learned enough English that they just want to talk to a native and really practice and understand how people actually speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the next step of learning reading and writing in Garifuna is the speaking with people. Find an old lady in Dangriga and sit down and chat with her. We have to spend more time with our elders anyway.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Go to Barranco. I know people hail Hopkins as the last frontier in terms of Garifuna-ness and Garifuna language, but Barranco has quite a number of elders who do speak Garifuna and Spanish and Quechua and English.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so those what is it? Four things.
Those are four things. The fifth would be that if,
Online,
well, the fifth would be that
visiting
if
the place.
you're on Facebook, because I know not everybody in this younger generation is on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
there are some elders who have done series of online live Garifuna classes.
Do you know
Big,
a
big
few?
up to them. I'm gonna shout out Gwen Nunez Gonzalez. She did it. The thing, and some others have done it. The thing with that I wish would change is the marketing, my people. The marketing. You can't just market on Facebook, especially if you want the younger people to come and if you want the younger people to know.
Mm-hmm.
Create a Garifuna language TikTok. Somebody needs to make that. It
Mm-hmm.
won't be me.
You have to go where the young people are.
Go where the
Just
young
go
people
on the
are. Yes,
platform
yes,
that,
yes.
young people frequently visit.
Yes, at least,
Reach them
market on Instagram that you're doing these live Zoom classes, because there are people who are doing it. I know there is a Garifuna Bible study, because there's a Garifuna Bible, and I've heard that's a really good way to learn vocabulary as well. But
there. Mm-hmm.
again, these are micro groups that only if you know somebody who knows somebody
Yeah,
will
because I didn't know that. Yeah.
That's how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, you know, you know, programs like these, that, one of the biggest, or one of the goals or missions that I'm on is to bring awareness, and
Yeah.
hopefully through this medium, more people will learn,
Mm-hmm.
we'll see our people, we'll hear from them, we'll hear what they think and their suggestion, and see how we can bring more awareness.
Yeah.
This is just a conversation to have us, you know, to think, to
Absolutely.
think of, on the think the bigger picture and find different ways. There's so many different ways to do one thing. So hopefully
Absolutely.
through this medium will, you know, help with that in that way. So thanks for sharing and providing some very good ideas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's proceed. So when you're not singing or writing songs or what you used to do, the podcast, what are some of the other talents or activities that you engage in?
Talents or activities. I like to be
Your
in
hobbies that you
I like
engage
I like to
in?
be in nature. Um, I don't think it's natural. I know you're in New York. Oh, God
Mhm.
bless you. I don't think it's natural to be surrounded by concrete. to the level that many people are surrounded by concrete. And as often as I can. So I am currently based in Trinidad and Tobago, and I have been trying to go river hunting with my friends. I have a friend who knows where all the rivers are around Port of Spain, and I just want to go into the bush and by the river. I've just completed a 2.5 week walk, the Camino de Santiago, which is a walking pilgrimage. Is it a hobby? Well, I guess so, because now that I've finished it, I walked 15 days. Overall, it was 17 days, 230 kilometers, which is over 100 miles. I am very proud of myself.
You should be, because I
I
would
don't.
never
It's a lot
even
with the full
dream of
weight
that.
of my backpack.
What?
Yeah. Growing up in Belize City by the bus terminal, I used to see these white people with these big backpacks,
Yes. I was
and I
like,
would wonder, like,
I mean,
where are they
how? I
going?
mean, right.
Why? And also, why don't they have a suitcase like normal people?
Mm-hmm.
But I had the full weight of my backpack, and I walked 15 days, and it was something that I needed. Walking is very important to me. If I can walk in nature, even better, because the job that I work that makes me money is very cerebral. It's very in my mind. I'm teaching past tense, future tense, trying to understand what my student is trying to say, because sometimes they're not making any sense. So it's a lot of up here. And at the end of a long day, even if I just walk down the hill and back 15 minutes, walking does something to release the tension. And if my mind is in a knot, like a knotted piece of string, walking is like untangling that knot and making it a string again, so that I could use the string. Now that I've finished this Camino, I'm realizing I want to do more walks. I don't want to call it hiking, because I'm not power walking up the mountain. I'm actually, I made a joke to the Spaniards that I'm tortugando, like tortuga is a turtle. I'm turtle walking. I'm walking so slow that the whole crowd of other pilgrims have left me, and I'm just by myself in the forest. That's how slow I'm walking. I'm the last one to arrive at the hostel.
But the point is, you arrive.
I arrive, but I'm the last one, because I'm just being with the trees and breathing and feeling and being in my body, because living in the city and working a job kind of makes me get out of my body and just in my mind to do the job, which is fine. But I'm realizing there gets a point for me where I get too far out. And the way for me to come back in is walking, preferably among the trees. And so I'm going to do more of that, and more of that, and traveling. I am child free, and I have a passport. So those two things are
Well,
combined.
can.
Those two are combining to, and I'm living in the Caribbean. I want to learn the Caribbean. I could go to Miami. I could go to Atlanta. I could go to New York and go shopping like every other Caribbean person. Or I could take that same money and visit another island and see what is the same and what is different. I was in Dominica 3 months ago, partly to escape Trinidad's carnival, and partly I just wanted to see the indigenous people there. And their indigenous people, many of them, like us, don't speak the language. But in their museum, they have a list of words. And of course, 70% of their words are Garifuna words. And that's not something, now I have heard about this from my elders who have traveled the Caribbean, talking to other indigenous people, but seeing it for myself, I was like, wow, okay. And so, yes, my hobby is walking among the trees. My hobby is traveling. And I want to get back into reading, because we have to nourish our mind, especially now that I'm not in school anymore. How do we keep learning as an adult out of school? We don't really, not really. So I'm trying to get back into learning and keeping my mind engaged, because aging really comes when you stop learning. Yeah.
Never thought of it like that. Aging happens when you stop learning.
So let me share. I was in Tobago last year. Tobago, in my opinion, is the better half of Trinidad, right? The
Mm-hmm.
country is Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
Trinidad is like built up and highways and fast, and
Mm-hmm.
Tobago's like Keycocker. Tobago is slow.
Mm-hmm.
Tobago is chill. Tobago is just black people with some Indians, but I was at my favorite hotel and I got friendly with the owner because he was walking around asking like, "How are you? How's the dinner?"
Mm-hmm.
Da-da. And we got into quite a conversation because when people meet, I don't know if this happens to you, but when people learn I'm from Belize, they're like, "Belize, tell me about Belize. I heard about this thing." I don't know, but Belize makes people very interested,
Yes, yes.
especially being black, because they're like, "Oh, the last person from Belize I met was Spanish, so I
Um,
thought you were a Spanish country." And then I'm like, "Well, I'm black, but actually I'm Garifuna." "Oh, but what is Garifuna?" That leads the
mhm,
conversation in a certain way. So I fell into a long conversation with the owner of this hotel, and he was so young and vibrant. And so after a while, I said, "Sir, so how old are you?" And the man is 80 something. And
wow.
truly, I would not have thought that he was over 60. Like
Mhm.
he
What
looked
is he
older,
doing?
but not.
What is
I
he
would
doing?
not have
What's
thought
his
like,
secret?
yeah. And I asked him, like, "What is your secret?" And he said, "I love this hotel. I love this job. And the hotel industry, especially after Corona, it's always changing. And I have to stay on the ball." So I
Mhm.
met him and I met another old man, also over 80, retired. And I had the fortune of sitting next to him at the wedding of someone that I didn't really know. So
Mhm.
and he was telling me that every month he learned something new every day. No,
Mhm.
every month he learned something new.
Mhm.
So that month, this was last year, that month he was learning about AI and he was experimenting with Chat GPT. Now I am 30 years old and I don't really know much about Chat GPT, and this man is 84 and can
Wow.
tell me about the mechanics and this and that.
Mhm.
I saw him again 2 months ago and he was learning about making books and book binding,
What?
right? Like
Wow.
just
Mhm.
random, but I've discovered like people over 80 who are really engaged and interesting. It's because they're learning and they're engaged and they're out in the world talking
Mhm.
to people.
Mhm.
And I am noticing in myself, I don't want to learn this new technology of AI. I don't want to get on TikTok. I don't want to, but this is the crucial point of no, let me learn it so that I
Mhm.
can stay current, so that I
Right.
can be alive and on this
Mhm.
planet.
Mhm. Mhm.
Otherwise, you'll get so far behind that then it's too much.
Right.
So yeah, learning is one way to stay, maybe not young, but to stay energized
Mhm.
in this life. I want to be like those old people. I want to have a big gray afro, and I want to know random things
Mhm.
and teach my nieces and nephews like, "Oh yes, in Sri Lanka, this is their ritual that
Mhm.
is similar to the Garifuna ritual of this, which is similar to the one in Africa, which is like I want to be that old lady that has that random information,
Mhm. Mhm.
which means I have to read."
Yes, you have to keep learning, keep learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for sharing that. So I want to switch to
Ooh,
your most current album, if you'd allow me.
oh boy. Yes, okay.
So can you see the your page on Bandcamp?
I can.
Okay,
I don't
so
know why
I'll
I feel so
be
uncomfortable.
you'll be fine, you'll be fine. So can you talk about um what inspired this album? And
Mm.
also what the process was like, producing and completing this album. And of course, what from the 13 songs, which one is your favorite and why, of course?
The River Whispered was born, or it was seeded in the summer of 2020. I was living in Spain at the time. It was the height of the pandemic. Like, we were only just allowed outside because Madrid in particular had a very harsh lockdown for a long time. So by June, we were finally allowed to walk outside. And that August was when I learned that Madrid is ridiculously hot and dry.
Mm.
So, and I wasn't working because school was closed because I was working as a teacher. So I ran away to the north of Spain, and I did a work exchange where I exchanged work at a hostel for accommodation.
Mm.
So between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m., I helped with washing dishes and sweeping and clearing out the beds and putting on new sheets and anything that needed doing.
Mm-hmm.
And for the rest of the day, I had I had free time to do what I wanted. And this hostel was right next to a river, like a 30-second walk,
Oh,
like
wow.
on the river. And in Spain in the summer, sunset is 10:30. So
What?
imagine you're finished work at 2 p.m. and there's a whole next 8 hours of daylight.
Amazing. Wow.
It
And I thought
was,
New York was something, but
yeah. It
10:30.
was a dream. It was
Wow.
it was such a strange time because people were wearing face masks and the vaccines weren't out, and it was weird, but
It
it
was
was
2020.
beautiful because I was next to the river. I walked with my guitar. I always travel with my guitar, always. This is the first trip right now where I don't have my guitar.
Oh, wow.
So I was running away from Madrid and I was by this river for about 2.5 weeks. And my goal was to see if I could write some songs and just see. And after about a week, the river whispered. The river literally whispered and gave me 3 or 4 songs.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time I thought, okay, I could make an EP, which is just like 4 or 5 songs under 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes. But after that summer, a lot of life happened and I put it to the side. So this was 2020. In 2022, I had a terrible accident, which resulted in seeing many, many doctors that made the accident worse. And I now can use the word medical malpractice. And so it was injury to my hand, and I could not play guitar for a year. And I cannot articulate what it felt like to not be able to play my instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And in healing from that whole ordeal, what had happened? I did a creative course last year in January where the woman was talking about the spirituality of rivers and how in this world things will drop into our, like pollution will drop into our river, and our job is to continue to river ourselves, to wash away, like to cleanse ourselves, flood our own banks to wash off that pollutant. And that is a continuous process because the world and the society will drop all kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And when she said that, I was
Wow.
like, oh, I could write a song about that. And then that made me think, I have some river songs from like 3 years ago. But those songs were about the literal river. And now I was thinking, but there's a spiritual river.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent the rest of last year thinking about this spiritual river and this concept of rivering myself back to myself, because the medical situation, I was not able to feel emotionally for a really long time just because of how difficult it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to write a bunch of songs and record them and just put all of these river songs, because at that point I realized it's a collection of not just literal river songs, but spiritual river and like emotional river, the metaphorical river.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through, even the order of the songs kind of tells a story. And it was through this process of rivering, making the album, that I did bring myself back to myself, which I'm so pleased. This album, I put it online, like people can listen to it, but it's actually for me. This was a completely selfish project where I needed to get back to myself, and I did. My favorite song is Bring Me Back, because that is the song that was inspired by the lecture where she was talking about the river. The outro is a mantra. It's a repetition of river, river, as you flow, tell me all I need to know. Flood my banks and drench my soul. Wash away this human toll. River, river, as you flow. Something, something, something. Anyway, rivering. That song is also special because I had a section of words, a bridge that I didn't like. And I reached out to a friend who was a poet, Trinidadian poet, Brit. And I said, hey, I have a song with like space for a poem. Why don't you write something and let's see? And it ended up being just a beautiful collaboration of my melody and her words. And she tied in her Trinidadian folklore, actually, which is so lovely. More information on that is on my Substack, which you can find in the link, I don't know, thing. But that would be the song that I point people to if they're like, I only have time for one song. Like, listen to that one, Bring Me Back.
Okay, so if you
Yeah.
don't mind, we'll play a little snippet of it so people can hear it.
You could play
Sounds
that.
good?
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes I'm struggling, my mind racing, my tongue tripping to bring me back at all the straws I'm grasping, my muscles burning, my bones weary to bring me back. Sometimes I'm struggling, my mind racing, my tongue tripping.
Okay. So what's your advice to someone who are going through a you know, a challenge, a major challenge in their lives, and what advice would you give them to sort of river through that challenge and get to a place where they say, yes, I'm at a place where I want to be.
I would first ask, because to me, everyone has a creative outlet, whether it's writing or drawing, doodling, cooking. My first question is always, what is that thing that you like to do? And then do that thing. And it doesn't have to be for money. Just let it be for yourself. Creativity, I think, is expressing your creativity is the best way to come back to yourself, whether it's just taking a class or doing an online course on Coursera or whatever. So many online things to choose from. Therapy is great. Let me be a Garifuna person and say therapy is great. Yes, God. Yes, God. And a doctor is great.
Mhm.
And the rest of it, I can only speak for myself, which was so much crying, so much walking in nature and learning to listen to my body, even though I couldn't really fully feel. I did have glimmers of feeling, and so going towards that and surrounding yourself and really leaning into your community. I'm glad I moved back to the Caribbean. First, I went home to my parents, God bless them. And they were my cocoon because they love me and I love them. And then I moved to Trinidad, where I started to make new friends, and that was painful at the time because I knew that the version of me that they were meeting was not the real me, because I was exhausted and tired and in pain from all of this stuff. And their openness and acceptance of just me as I was healing in itself. Personal to me, because I know not everyone can do this, but traveling the Caribbean and being around other Black people after the isolation of Spain was also deeply, deeply, deeply healing. Going to Barbados and everybody like, oh, how long were you away? What parts of Barbados are you from? Like, no, I'm from Belize. Same thing in Dominica. People thought, oh, where from Dominica are you from? Like, no, I'm from Belize. That like teeny tiny things like that was healing for me. But in terms of external advice, yes, therapy, beautiful friends and leaning into them, to the friends that you trust, because not everyone deserves the full weight of your story. And even in the healing journey, not everyone needs to know the full weight of the story. Not everyone needs to know, not everyone deserves to know, and that's fine. And then therapy. Okay, therapy. Highly recommend finding a good therapist, a good, affordable therapist. Yes.
Thanks for sharing that. So let's proceed. So I've switched. So in sharing all that you shared, what's next for you in this journey that you're on? Where do you see yourself in the next, few years, 5 years or so?
What's
What's
my
next for
5-year
you?
plan? I don't know about 5 years, if the planet will still be alive in 5 years, but I could tell you 2 years. I could tell you the next year and a half. Having just finished this major walking pilgrimage, I got what I needed. On day 12, I got what I needed. I got what I came for. Moving forward, I have quite a few music projects with some beautiful humans that I've met in Trinidad. Having finished my own album, I'm not in a hurry to work on my own music. But I'm ready to step into, being a female producer, because if you look at the music industry, there's a lot of men and we love them, of course. But women bring a different kind of leadership to the table. And and me with my spirituality, I'm very picky about who I work with, because if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. So I'll be collaborating with some beautiful people, and in particular helping one friend with what will probably be her EP, right? She wants to sing, and I'm just gonna make it happen, facilitate that. I do have an album in the archives from my medical trauma experience. I don't know if I will revisit them. I have a lot of songs in the archives, but the way that I work is that the song is born in a moment to help me get through the moment. And then I put it down unless my spirit is like, no, this is for the world, do it now. But she's been quite gentle with me because she knows that, yo, I'm in pain. But it's possible that some of those songs will float back and say, hey, I'm ready for you to do something. And I have discovered that when I write a song and put it down and come back to it and produce it and work on it, there's a different process of processing what happened. The singing and the recording is a different stage of alchemy from the process of producing and pushing the buttons and making the levels, and that's a different stage of alchemy, which is different from performing it, because then there's people listening and that adds. But I'm not in a rush to perform, and I'm not in a rush to make my own music. So what is next is taking a step back into the producer's chair and helping other people fly. And being in the community that I found for myself in Trinidad. And I have 3 other trips booked for the rest of this year. So I will be traveling. I'm already dreaming and scheming for next year. I want to do a big hike in Japan. So fingers crossed, we'll see. It's a lot of money, but as well, you know, I don't have kids. So the money that would go in towards a child is going towards my plane ticket. Because I want to see this world. And I lived in one of the worst hit countries during Corona. So I still feel this feeling of when you let a tiger out of the cage, the tiger goes wild. I'm not going quite wild because money, but I want to see this world. And because I've always had to teach about my Garifuna culture, I want to learn about these other cultures and see. I love seeing what's similar and what's different. Teaching Koreans, they have a similar tradition of setting food. And when I heard about that, I was like, we do that in my culture. And I'm from like Belize, St. Vincent. And then they were like, oh, I thought that was only in Korea. And I'm happy to share that. No, Mexicans do it. Different people in Africa do it, right? Garifuna people do it. So the more I learn about the differences, the more I can find the connecting dots, and that makes me feel alive. My goal for the next rest of my life is to move towards the things that makes me feel alive. And that's music and travel and trees.
Yeah.
Do I sound like a hippie? I'm a Garifuna hippie.
Yeah.
I claim it.
So well, eventually, or maybe you're doing it already. I think it's important to be able to share, you know, what you know in terms of your skills, your talents for the people that are coming after you. Do you think it's important, or
Yes.
do you plan to eventually start doing that? Some, you know, some mentorship, in other words.
Oh,
For those who have aspiration of being a musician, aspirations of being a producer, aspirations of playing the guitar, you know.
yeah. I mean, my number one advice is we can all go to YouTube University, you know, because that's how I learned how to play guitar. That's how I learned how to produce music. YouTube University. YouTube.com is the best.
Yes,
In terms of mentorship and sharing, I'm always willing to share my story and my lessons to whoever asks. When it comes to my little nieces and nephews, I'm always mindful. They're a bit too young now, but I've already done it with my slightly older but younger cousins, where I said, hey, I'm so extra, but I have said, yo, if you see dead people, if you see some spirits, it's okay. Call me. You have my number. I am that cousin. And they're like, okay, stuff, like whatever. And with my younger cousins who are starting to be aware, I've just tried to drop seeds of, yeah, of course you can do it and things like that. I absolutely look forward to being that auntie that will kidnap my niece, kidnap, not actually kidnap, but kidnap my nieces and nephews and just go on a boat trip somewhere, go to Peacock, I don't know, and just talk about things so that I can inject them with my knowledge.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, yes. Establishing a proper mentorship program, especially in Belize, I feel like I would have to be in Belize for a long time.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I do feel like I might end up being a bush lady in Barranco in the next 50 years, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And so I'm open.
Yeah, I mean, if that's where the journey leads you,
If that's where
hey.
the journey leads, like I wouldn't be surprised. Because my father has built his house in the village and none of my other siblings are particularly interested in Barranco, but I like Barranco. So
Mhm.
most likely I will live in Barranco and be a bush lady.
Mhm.
And then I'll teach the young babies there, that, hey, life is bigger than just
Mhm. Yes.
this 2-street village
Mhm. Mhm.
now.
And I think that's important. I mean, sometimes we get, especially if we are not used to living beyond our literal boundaries,
Yes.
we get to miss out on what's out there, that the world is bigger than than you can even imagine, and that you can
Yeah.
do so much more than you can even imagine.
The thing is, I remember those teachers who used to tell me that in school, and we all used to roll our eyes, like, of course, like, So I don't know how effective it would be to say it. Of course, it's important to say it, but I wonder what would be the most effective way.
The
If
the
I ever
difference
get the
is
money,
you are living it, you have experience of moving from here to here and speaking to those people, living in those communities, traveling the world, as you say. So you come with your unique perspective because of your journey. You've lived it. So that gives you some kind of, you know, reason or
yeah,
to say what you're saying. You're not just saying it because you're
but
saying
yeah,
it because you've lived
yes,
it.
yes. Only if I'm invited to speak it,
Mhm.
because I know I know how people stay. I if I speak, I want to be listened to. You don't have to do what I tell you, but at least listen. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, we'll see. But I'm open
Mhm.
because I have knocked on the doors of so many elders in distress with
Mhm.
many things, and I'm so grateful for the elders that were patient with me and shared their own story. You can share your story without giving out the private details of other people and yourself.
Mhm.
I'm so grateful for those elders, and I look forward to being that elder in
Mhm.
due time. I'm not an elder
Mhm.
yet,
Mhm.
but I will happily pay it forward.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Albo Amorono. What? Owl?
Albo
Nuguya
amor no.
Nuguya Boo. Because owl is the male, right? Like Nuguya Boo Amorono. Anyway, Albo
Mhm.
Amorono. I for you, you for me. We will.
Mhm.
It's a circle.
Yeah.
And as I have been taken care of by both people alive and passed on in the spirit world, I will so happily take care of people around me. And when
Mhm.
I am dead, I will be a good ancestor. I'll be a good spirit saying, hey, Nibari, get rid of that boyfriend. He's not good for you. I will be that spirit coming in the dream saying, yo,
Mhm.
I love you, Nibari. Don't go down this path.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
I know it's dramatic, but yo,
Yeah. Well,
it's so
that's how you
helpful.
feel. That's where you are. So hey, express yourself. Yeah. Well, thanks.
An ancestor did tell me to break up with a boyfriend, actually. So
Uh-oh.
I'm speaking from
Uh-oh.
experience. It was very
There,
helpful.
there you go. There you go.
Anyway,
Thanks for
thank you
sharing
for
that.
this time, Juliet.
Yeah, of course. So, and finally, or before the finally,
Okay.
how if people are interested in um learning more about you in terms of, professional wise, or reaching out to buy an album, to see, your posts, how would they connect with you?
Uh, I share the stories behind my songs and my songs on Substack, which is a newsletter website.
Hmm.
I think I can send you the link and you can maybe put it in the description of
Yeah,
this
I
video.
will do that. Yes.
But I think if you type into Google Feroza Cayetano Substack,
Hmm.
you'll find it. Because I love hearing the stories behind a song.
Hmm.
And for me, it's important to share not just the song, but why it came about, what was the whole thing, whatever. So for long form storytelling, I am there. For pictures of me in the bush among the trees, I don't share a blow by blow account of my travels, but when I do post things, it's always with an element of storytelling and context.
Hmm.
For example, when I was in Dominica, I witnessed Vaval, which was the Tewe Vaval, which is the ceremonial burning of the carnival. They put all the carnival paraphernalia into a coffin and they burn it.
Oh, wow.
And there's something about reenactment. I was thinking about the Garifuna reenactment of the homecoming,
Hmm.
and it made me. And so when I posted about Dominica, I was also talking about Belize and this common human need to reenact the past.
Hmm.
So find me on Instagram where I share mindfully and consciously and not just for content. I don't
Hmm.
create content. I
Hmm.
share my musings and my thoughts and pictures of trees because as I have established, I enjoy trees. I
Hmm.
am currently a walking tree. Call me granddaughter Willow. Yeah. So Instagram and Substack are the two places. For the album, you can find it where you get your music, but if you really want to support, you can go to Bandcamp, which is a website that when you pay Bandcamp, that money actually gets into my bank account,
Hmm.
which I cannot say the same for Amazon or any of the other websites.
Hmm.
So if you can, go over there, buy the album. It supports me, it supports the people that help me make it as well, and it helps me make more music.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's about it, I think.
Yeah. All right, Feroza Cayetano,
Yeah.
StephAnn.
So yo,
When it's all said and done, we're only here for the length of time God allows us to be. So when it's all said and done, what do you want people to think when they hear your name? What do you want them to think?
I want my tombstone to say that she followed her inner compass, she followed her soul's call, and she walked 500 miles. Let that be it. Yeah.
Okay. And I leave the last words. Any last words?
I do want to say to your listeners, far and wide, young and old, whether you're Garifuna or not, wherever you are on your identity journey, that at the end of the day, no one can tell you who you are, right? You are who you know you are, which of course is a journey. But once you have decided it, no one can tell you otherwise, especially what runs in your veins. And the legacy of our strong ancestors runs through our veins. And let that be your guiding compass. And let that give you courage to do what you want to do, whether or not it's traditional. Because we evolve the culture and we make new traditions, and that is okay.
Mhm.
It's okay. And to follow your soul's call, because there's no going wrong if you follow your inner compass. Itarala.
All right.
Ita, itarala, ita.
La, la. All right, Feroza Cayetano, StephAnn, thank you so much for joining me, for being here, for sharing of yourself and your journey, your experiences. Much appreciated. Sarah May, Sarah May,
Hey,
Sarah May.